everybody, and welcome to the All About Health podcast. My name is Georgia Overbeck, and I'm your host. Today I have a returning guest. This is Riley Brennan. If you haven't listened to it, we just recorded an episode all about being in your 20s and her advice for your 20s, and it was so good. No matter if you're in your 20s or not, you should listen to it. And I'm going to link that down below, but it also is, of course, the newest episode, so you can just go to my page and see that. But today we're going to be talking about something different. We're actually going to be talking about running and fitness because Riley has had a very long fitness journey, I would say, like pretty much all your life.
Yeah.
And she's run marathons and done half marathons. So we're going to be talking all about that today because my episode that I recorded about running is one of the most listened to All About Health podcast episodes. I thought that this would be perfect to talk to you more about running if you guys want to hear more about that. So let's get started.
Yeah.
Okay, my first question for you is when and how did your fitness journey begin? Like, how did you even get into the fitness world?
Well, I was always active as a kid and always outside, always part of like school sports and that sort of thing. And I mean, I wasn't half bad at that kind of stuff. So, I mean, that helped keep me interested and motivated and that sort of thing. And then in high school, I was working a lot. I had my first job and I was putting in like crazy hours for someone who's also attending high school. So my life in sports kind of took a big backseat, and I didn't prioritize it a lot, but I still remained super active. Like I would run around my neighborhood pretty frequently whenever I wasn't working, or on weekends or that sort of thing. And then I met your mom, and then started to attend classes at the gym, and that was my big sort of like break into like more strength based and like lifting stuff. So I started doing that and started bouncing, obviously, and that was like, it was just like a cool new thing that I wanted to try because I like to be challenged. And that being said too, like my dad was always active and like we have gym equipment at the house. We have an old treadmill that I hope never dies because I've spent so many hours on that thing. So I would like use that stuff too, but not in a big routine sort of way.
So pretty much all your life.
Yeah, I would say so. And then I met your mom, started coming to the gym, and was like, oh, like I love this. I feel so good. And yeah.
That's amazing.
Then that took off, and then I kind of returned to running more seriously. I want to say 2019. Or maybe the tail end kind of 2018 was when I was like, okay, I actually love to run. Running's hard. Like it's wretched.
Can confirm.
Yeah. So I was like, I think I wanted to try and set some goals with this and get back into it and challenge myself a lot.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And you've done so many different types of workouts and fitness too, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Would you say running's your favorite?
That's really hard. I don't know. I think so. I think so.
Is there ever a time when you don't want to run?
Totally. But I think everyone goes through that sort of stuff. It's you have to be really comfortable with being by yourself. Like it's not a team sport by any means, so you have to have a lot of good intrinsic motivation to get out there first and then to put one foot after the other. But
How would you say that you get that motivation? Like, do you have a certain routine that you do to prepare for a run, or do you watch or listen to something, or what gets you actually into that headspace to be like, no, I'm going for a run now?
Yeah, I try and schedule it. That way I'm like, no, this is your time that you're running. Or if I'll kind of slot it in at a time of day where I know I'll need it is another big thing for me, because it's my biggest stress relief. And that's just as exercise in general, whether I'm lifting or running or bouncing or going to a spin class or that sort of thing. Like, I try and really intentionally think about what I have on that day or that week, and plan my workouts kind of around that, when I know that I'll need to just sweat the day off, you know, and go to bed nice and fresh and have a clear mind and that sort of thing. I also will listen to music right before, like as I get ready, I'll kind of put on like a good jam that I can that I can get pumped up to, and that changes all the time depending on my mood, really. And other than that, I like, for sure, the first few kilometers or the first 5 minutes or whatever, I'm like, oh, this sucks. As my body's like starting to get into it. And I'm not always motivated, for sure, but also I feel so good after.
Yeah.
And I think I try and keep that in mind a lot too. Yeah. I never regret going.
No.
Or doing it, right?
I agree. That's something that I always say too, is like, I think about how I'm going to feel after the run, like how I'm going to feel after I get back. And I know that one of the best feelings in the world is getting in the shower after you just came back in from a run and you're sweaty and you're just like, oh, I feel so good. I'm so proud of myself.
I'm on top of the world.
And then you go and get some food and you're like, yes. Yeah. So that's what I think about, is that like after run experience.
Yeah. And I think that's also a strength of mine too, is that intrinsic motivation.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need a lot of that external stuff to motivate me as much as maybe some people might need. Like, and that's part of too, like, building that mental toughness, I think, to be like, to want to do it.
Yeah. To want to push yourself?
Yeah, to want to push yourself and to like that sort of pain.
Yeah, we're just crazy runners. Yeah. So you've been running for a really long time, as we said, but is there like a certain run or a certain experience you've had while you were running that really sticks out, that was like your favorite or something you'll always remember?
Yeah, actually. Oh, that's a great question. In April, I would think last year was the first, it was like a return to in-person races after COVID. And I was living in Edmonton at the time and was like a handful of hours away from Jasper National Park. So I signed up for the half marathon. So I got to go and run in the mountains.
Wow.
And it was beautiful. And that was like the first time I'd run like with people since COVID, and it was the first event, and that felt like I didn't care. It didn't care about my time or my pace or like anything like that. My only goal was to just have the experience, and that was one of the greatest feelings. I mean, it wasn't my fastest race or like anything like that, but I didn't care. I just had so much fun, and I have a great picture of me actually, just like with this massive smile, and my arms are spread out, and I'm just like in this moment of just joy. And because running, like there's a great running community too. It's quite a supportive place for the most part, and so these events are really, especially I would say after the pandemic, were just like this big like collective hug.
Yeah.
You know?
That's cool.
It was so cool. And I mean, like, there's nothing I love more than being in the mountains and the fresh air. So I got to combine a bunch of different things that I love.
So cool.
Yeah.
Do you know I've never done a race like with anybody else before. Like I've never done that before.
Yeah.
Other than one time when we were in Alliston, there was a 5K.
Yeah.
But I haven't done anything since then.
Oh,
and we should do it together.
We should do it. There's a run retreat
Oh.
that I want us to go on.
Okay.
It's like in Alaska.
Wow.
They have like other ones around the world too and through the US, but yeah, we have to do it.
That would be so cool.
Yeah.
Yes, let's do that, please. So I've also mentioned that you did your marathon, which must have also been one of the best experiences that you've had.
Yeah.
And feeling so good after that. But what was it like training for that? Because I've never done a marathon before, but I've seen a lot on TikTok, on Instagram, people training for it and what that's like. But what was your experience?
Yeah. So I was doing like a Sunday long run sort of situation where I'd focus on less, I think, on pace and more on building that distance up. So I'm trying to think of the longest distance I ran before the race. I want to say was 32 kilometers. And like I was nervous about that too. Because, well, first of all, those long runs sucked. I'm good with like 25 is good, and anything after that, especially around kilometer 27, 28, there's you are really mentally in it, and you are fighting with yourself. And then again, so like 27 and 37 are both just like terrible kilometers.
You're so close, but so far.
Yeah, and you're just like, this is terrible, I'm done. So those are like big mental pockets. But those long runs were hard in a, like they were great, but I was nervous that I didn't up that mileage enough before, because like the marathon is 42.2.
Yeah.
And I trained to 32 and then tapered the last few weeks. So I ran less, I did less mileage to keep my body nice and fresh before the run, which is like lots of people don't train to that 42, right? Because you don't want to run the marathon before the marathon.
Yeah.
But I was like, is 32 like a bad, like, that's 10 kilometers is a big gap. So I was like, am I going to be able to run another 10 kilometers after this point? So I was really nervous about that. And there's kind of like, I mean, I would say there's a sweet spot, and I figured it out for my half marathons before. Like, I think before my first half marathon, I think I ran up to 20 kilometers.
Wow.
So I was just shy. Like, my adrenaline just had to carry me another 1 kilometer, basically. So I was really, really nervous, but I think there was a reason why I didn't go past. I think I got sick a few weeks before. Like, there was something that messed with that timing a little bit. And that's, you just kind of have to let go.
Go with the flow.
Yeah, go with the flow, and your body will figure it out. Like, in the race, you'll figure it out. Plus, there's so much adrenaline that I think carried me some of those kilometers for sure. But yeah, so I was doing like long runs on Sundays. I was doing more recovery during the week. So those could be anywhere from like 30 minutes of recovery to like an hour run or something past there. And then I was doing some speed work in there too, because intervals and speed work are super important for running training also.
Where did you find, sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Where did you find like your training protocol for that?
Yeah. When I started like really committing to running, I got the Nike the Nike Run Club app, which I think you had for, did you still use it?
I don't anymore, but I did have it for a while.
Yeah, so a long time ago, they used to give you like training plans. So you would plug a date in.
You have to pay for them now, probably.
No, for the longest time, they just took them off the platform.
Oh.
And I was like, why I use this app? Yeah. And then, so you would plug in, you'd give them all the information. You give them the date, the distance, so they'd be able to go like week by week. They would make you do like a benchmark run where you would have to do, I think it was like a 7-minute warm up, a 3-minute, like as fast as you can, and then a cool down after. It was like 15 minutes total. Wow. And it sounds terrible, but I loved doing those runs. And now and still those aren't on the app now, which I hate, but out of my control.
Yeah.
So you would do that, and then you would give like information about like, okay, my fastest 5K is this, or my fastest 10K is this, and they would use all of that and use whatever algorithm and come up with something more tailored to you.
That's cool.
And your goal. And it was great. Like I loved those. So I started using that and got really familiar with that sort of format. So it was kind of like a long run. You would also put how many times a week you wanted to run or you could run.
So they don't make the app like this anymore?
They have training plans now. They just brought them back.
Okay.
And like within the past, I want to say year, I could be wrong, but at least within the past year, I've noticed them back on the platform. And it's similar, but they want you to pair it with like a guided run. So you can't just like, it's just not as simple, and it's not as tailored, I find. Okay. They don't make you do that like benchmark run every few weeks to check your progress. And those were, because they would give you like a target pace or a target distance based on your progression through the weeks too, which was also really nice because then it felt like a really personalized experience.
If anybody knows an app that is more personalized, let us know.
Yeah, and maybe an app that's not like $1,000,000.
True, that would be nice too.
Because some of them are personalized, but some of them are like, I mean, there's also fabulous run coaches that you could totally pay people to do all this for you. But I was like, how do
it for free?
How do I learn to do well? And once you get the foundation really of like a long run, a speed run, a speed run or two, or a recovery run or two in your
roster.
Week. Yeah. In sort of like a little weekly format with strength and cross training on top of that to help stay healthy and avoid injury and that sort of thing. But once you have those staples, I feel like it was easy enough for me to create my own plan or go off of something similar to that. So I think Nike had like a general one that I took and kind of tweaked based on using the plans before and like what I knew my body was used to already. Because I mean, I wasn't starting at week 1 with like run 5 kilometers right? At that time. And so that was how I kind of got into the planning. So then
Then it was just taking action.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So my next question for you is, if there's somebody listening to this right now and they have never ran before, what would be your biggest tips for a beginner, of somebody who wants to get into running? Not even that they want to do marathons, like they just want to start running in general.
Definitely invest in a good pair of shoes. Because injury is, I think, the most, like, avoiding injury is going to be the most important thing. Like, anyone can be a runner. Anybody. But not everyone can do it in a healthy way. Or, like, it would really suck to get onto the running scene, feel so good, and be, like, attacking your goals, and then all of a sudden be injured and, like, for whatever reason, not be able to return to that or get healthy enough to go back to something that you love. So definitely get a good pair of shoes, and it's pricey, and obviously not everyone has the means to do that. So if you're starting with what you have, that's good too. But really then taking other steps maybe to avoiding injury would be a good thing to do. But I swear by the shoes.
What are your favorite shoes though?
I am an Asics gal. I do the GT, it's like GT 2000, I think is
that sounds really
model.
Cool.
Yeah, I know, right? It sounds really professional. Yeah, and then they come out with new ones every year, but like you don't have to keep up on the new
trends.
The new trends or all the different tweaks that they've said they've made to them.
Yeah, if you want to keep going back to the same ones, you can do that too.
Yeah, because I prefer some over others when they do their like upgrades or whatever. I like to, sometimes if they're on clearance, I'll like buy an old model because I'm like, these feel really good.
Yeah.
But yeah, shoes are important. Making sure that you're hydrated, that's also super important. And then set like a little goal, even if it's like, okay, I want to be able to run for 5 minutes without stopping. Or like also you can run and stop. Like,
yeah,
you don't
I
have
do that.
Yeah, exactly. There's no rule that you have to just like start and then you only stop when you're done your run. Especially when you're first starting, because running is hard.
Yeah, it is.
Running is really hard. And it's a mental game, a lot of a mental game. There's a lot of times where you think you have to stop, but you can definitely power through. But that being said, listening to your body, I think, is another super important thing. If something like really hurts in a bad way, don't keep running.
No.
Or like, maybe seek a professional opinion for stuff like that. But
so kind of going off of the running shoes, how you're saying like having the right running shoes are going to be really important to prevent injury. Is there anything else that you do personally to prevent injury or that you've done in the past that you think has actually helped?
Cross training is a big thing. Lots of like core strength is super important too. It helps with your stride. It helps if you want to run fast. It helps you just be able to hold like a good form.
I remember when I first started running and like the next day my core and abs were so sore and I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
Like, I thought my legs would be sore.
I know. I always get that too. If I take a break, my core is so sore. But focusing on good form too, like before you even touch a distance goal or a speed goal, like an ideal pace, like the form is super important.
Do you warm up?
I
don't either. It's okay.
I should.
I know.
I should. I have always been really bad with warming up and cooling down, like and sticking to like a religious stretching routine too, like. And that's why I build, part of my cross training too is yoga, which is super common. You can like even just look up on YouTube like yoga for runners or yoga for athletes or something like that. And that helps target a lot of the core stuff also. But yeah, I try and build in yoga pretty frequently just because I know that I'm bad at that like stretching out.
Yeah.
And I'll foam roll frequently too to keep that soreness level down. But
all good tips.
Yes, definitely the cross training though.
Okay. Keep that in mind.
Yes, keep it in mind.
So if you're already strength training, then it's gonna be easier for you to add in some running rather than if you were going from nothing. So my next question, going off of that one, is how do you make sure that you are fueled enough for a run? And if you don't fuel enough, do you feel a difference?
I would say I feel a difference for sure. I try to make I try to time my meals or my fuel in a way that it's not so close to my run that I'm gonna like feel heavy or or
That's
sick
the worst.
or anything like, yeah, right? Because then you're not enjoying the time.
Yeah.
And it's harder to like thank yourself for it after because you just feel terrible the whole time. And I mean, like, running can feel bad already.
Yeah.
So when you make it feel worse, you're like, oh my gosh. But yeah, I try and focus on the timing of my meals for sure because like everybody is different. So for me, before physical activity, I can't eat too close just because then I feel gross.
Do you have a favorite pre-run meal or a few different favorites?
I don't know. I will do, it kind of depends. It kind of depends on the time of day too. I actually prefer to work out at night or in the evening. So kind of like an after dinner sort of thing. I'm a night owl with that stuff. Like I'll go down at 10 p.m. and we'll start like a 3-hour run.
Wow.
And that's just like fine for me. So I've had fuel all throughout the day.
Yeah.
So that's maybe, I think that's an area that I want to improve on too, is being a little bit more mindful of my intake before.
Okay, so I talk about this all the time on the podcast of being like finding a time to work out that works for you.
Yeah.
This is an example of that because like I'm sleeping at 10 p.m. and you're just starting your run. Like we're all different, so just keep that in mind.
Yes, yeah. And I mean, that's for me too. I work out at night because I like to sweat the day off. So I'll like go through the stress of my day and I'll have work or school or whatever it is that I'm doing that day. And then afterwards I'll do my de-stress time where it's just me. And it's easier, it's just personally easier for me to slot it in at the end as opposed to, I'm not much of a morning person. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
Amazing. So I have one more question related to fitness and running, and that is, what are your goals going forward with fitness and running? Like, how do you want to include it for the rest of your life?
It'll definitely always be part of my life. The fitness stuff, like I just have always been active. It's how I relieve my stress. It's where I get my energy from. You have to give energy to get energy. So that's whether I'm outside hiking or going for a run or lifting or going to yoga or whatever, I'm just always moving my body. So yeah, fitness will always just continue to be a part of my life, I think. Running, my goals, I would say, I think I'm gonna run another marathon. We were talking about this earlier where I was like, I don't know, I haven't committed to anything, but yeah, I'm kind of in that weird space of navigating, like having an injury flare up, and like wanting to get back out there. Yeah. Because it's a scary thing to think about, like maybe re-injuring yourself, especially after you spend so much time recovering and healing and going through some of like the really low points of being injured, because it takes a big mental toll, and a physical toll, of course, but the mental stuff is extra sucky.
Especially like since it was your de-stressor.
Yeah, and that's a big part of it too. Is I'm scared of the injury part and like physically feeling bad, but then not having that outlet.
Are you comfortable like saying what actually happened, like what your injury was?
Yeah. Oh, of course. Yeah. So I had a stress fracture in my foot, which just seems like it was an overuse injury. That's what we've kind of chalked it up to. So it was just, like I noticed I was fine training for my marathon. And then I think during my marathon, I started to feel some different pain. I mean, like I was feeling lots of pain in lots of different areas, but by the point that I started to feel it, but just kind of a different pain in my foot. So I was like, okay, I'm at kilometer 35 or something. I've never run this far. I've only trained to 32. This is probably normal. Like, it's not a big deal. Like, I haven't pushed myself this far. My body's just figuring it out. Like, I'll be good. And then I finished my race, and I was just sore all over. So I don't think I didn't really tune into the fact that it felt so like as off as it really did. And then
you're probably looking around at everybody else like, do you also have this now?
Is this normal? And then I was also doing a run streak at the time. So I was running every day, whether it be like, and I mean like 5 minutes of jogging counted for me. I didn't have like a big distance minimum, but I had been running every day for, I think it was something like 156 days or something like that, on top of training for the marathon. So overuse was a big factor for sure. But I ran my race, and then the next day I went to go and do my like 5 minutes or whatever of running, and I mean, like, that felt terrible regardless. But then I could barely put weight on my foot.
Wow.
Without just like a sharp pain. And I was like, okay, I something's swollen. It'll go down in a few days. I still kept running little bits every day, but for the most part, I was off my feet for 3 weeks of like elevation and ice and all the stuff that I figured I was supposed to be doing. And I was still doing like a little bit, like a tiny, tiny little run every day, like whether it's like 200 meters or whatever. And then I had the Banff half marathon. And I was like, I'm fine. Like, everywhere else in my body, all my soreness was fine.
How long was this after?
Energy. 3 weeks.
Oh, okay.
3. You're like,
that's very soon.
You're a stupid person.
Very close.
Yeah, it was very close. And I mean, like, I felt great otherwise. Because I mean, the next day you kind of feel like you've been hit by a car. But then I think I recovered quite well, actually, and way quicker than I expected, which was nice. So I was like, yeah, I'm ready for this run. Like, I feel great. I've been doing nothing for 3 weeks. That could like really aggravate any soreness, and especially pain with my foot, because it still felt off, but I didn't know how off. And then I started this run, and
this was the half marathon?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, I started this half marathon, and I'm in Banff, and it's beautiful. Like, I've never done this course before. I was so excited. Just like, I love doing this sort of stuff. And I wasn't even 2 kilometers, and I was in so much pain that I had to stop.
Wow.
And walk. And I can run 25 kilometers without feeling like I need to stop. And I'm kind of like, I'm a little more hard on myself of like, go, like, you don't need to stop. We're doing a continuous 21.1, and I've never, especially in a race event, I always have like a pace or a time goal. So I'm like, you stop after the line. So when I had to stop and walk, I was like, this feels gross in a lot of ways. Like, this feels really hard and really emotional. And I was like, something's actually really wrong here physically. Like, I'm in this terrible pain, and I was like, okay, I'm in the middle of this course. Usually, and I will say too, usually there are lots of people, like medics en route and that sort of thing. So if you have any sort of injury or emergency, like there's someone there to help you, and they can take you out and that sort of thing. But I didn't see anyone on this whole route, basically. But also, there was no way I wasn't crossing this line.
Oh. Did you walk?
I alternated between walking and running.
Okay.
So I was like, I'm finishing this race. Like, I started this race, I crossed one line, I'm crossing the second line.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just my own personal decision. I don't recommend that for
Good to know.
everybody, but I'm a stubborn brat, especially with stuff like this. And yeah, I mean, it's not my smartest move, it's not my dumbest move, but it just is what it is. So yeah, I was like, okay, how are you doing this, Riley? What's the move? So I walked for a little bit, and I was like, okay, it gives me a little bit of a break. Like, I'm not in unbearable pain when I walk. So I was like, I'm gonna just do like a leapfrog sort of situation. So I'll walk for, I don't know, maybe X amount of minutes. I can't remember exactly how I split it, but like I'll walk for 5 minutes, and then I'll run for 5. And I just kind of did that. Or if I was feeling like I needed more of either one.
And you made it all the way?
Oh yeah, I did this whole run.
Wow.
I did this whole 21.1 kilometers of like, yeah, alternating between walking and running.
Wow.
And I mean, I was also in a terrible place while this is happening. So I'm running and walking for 2 hours, I think, or just over that. I don't remember. There was no way I was looking at that clock when I finished, because I just felt so like it wasn't what I wanted. I don't want to see how long that took me, because this isn't my like peak performance, and I'm hard on myself, especially with numbers and stuff like that. So yeah, I was alone with myself for 2 hours
in pain,
and watching other people run by me, and having to deal with the fact that like I couldn't do what I wanted to do, and also coming to terms with the fact that like, yeah, there's something wrong here, and like you have to actually go to the hospital or go to the doctor.
That would have been such a hard realization to have.
Yeah, it was really hard. And like I said, I'm hard on myself. So I was really emotional. And just like trying to hold it together, because you're surrounded by people and like it sucks. So yeah, I kind of just like had to sit with that. And then I finished the run and crossed the line. And then my best friend Jake was with me, and as soon as I crossed and saw him, like I lost it. Like I just was crying, and was like, I felt so disappointed in myself that first of all, I let myself get injured, which isn't a good way to look at it, right? Like,
yeah, wasn't your fault.
Yeah. Or like, I just, like I had 2 hours to be like, here's all the things that you could have done to be more on top of avoiding injury.
Yeah.
And I wasn't giving myself any grace at all, just because I was in such a, like, I was just so ticked off.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I'm mad at myself. I'm so mad at my body. And all of that was just coming to a head at the end of this race. So yeah, I crossed, and I just like, I just cried, and I was like, I actually have to do something about this now. And the other thing too is like that fear of recovery and that recovery process, because it's so long. And at the time, like obviously at the time I didn't know that I had a stress fracture by any means. Like I didn't know what was wrong. I figured I just like tweaked something or whatever. But yeah, I had never been in pain like that while I was running. And
So going through all that,
yeah.
like, do you think that there was a reason? Like, was it something you had to grow through or learn from, or was it just a hard time that sometimes it happens in life?
I don't know. And I don't, like, I mean, I guess I definitely learned from that.
Yeah.
Right? Because I wasn't doing all the stuff that I should have been doing. And I mean, there's also something to be said for, like, this was also the busiest time of my life. Like, I was in my master's. I was in school from like 8 until 3, and then I would work from 3:30 to 6:30, and then after that I would train and study and all that sort of stuff. So I was truly, like, in such a busy season of my life that there are things that I didn't have a chance to prioritize as much as I should have, or would have liked to. That's a better way to put it, that I would have liked to. But also, that being said, it's an overuse injury, and I've been running for how many years, putting up like lots of kilometers. It could have happened when I wasn't in a race or whatever. I think it was probably something that was inevitable in a way. But yeah, I definitely learned a lot. It was a really crummy thing to have to go through, especially coming off of a marathon where I am right in the middle of that plan, because it's such a big commitment, and then you can't stand on your foot for, like, you have to be off of it and have it elevated as much as possible. Like, I was in a walking, like a boot cast, and like, that's just so inconvenient. So there was that, like, going from 100 to 0 physically. That was really hard, because then, like, your body changes too with injury, and that was a really hard thing to deal with. But also, yeah, like, that's my stress outlet.
Yeah.
So I felt just, like, full of mostly rage for I think, like, close to 2 months by the time I was able to get in and have all of these scans done. Yeah, so just the difference in that routine and that ability being taken away so quickly, and that sort of, and then of course I felt dumb, because I was like, why would you run a half marathon 3 weeks, like, and I knew something was a little bit wrong before. So I was like, you shouldn't have done this. Like, you shouldn't have done this. And again, at that time, I figured it was just overuse, and I hadn't rested it for long enough, and it wasn't the fact that there was, like, a stress fracture. So yeah, I think there are things that I learned, but then there's good things that came out of it too. Like, I got to slow down a little bit, and I got to lean on the people around me, and see who was able to show up for me at that time. So that was a good thing too. Like, I couldn't drive because it's my right foot.
Wow.
So, like, Jake would pick me up for school and drive me around. If I was, like, out at an event, my friends, like Haley and Nadine, would, like, body block people from getting too close to me if we were, like, in a crowd or something like that, because I tried to do as much as I could still. But yeah, everyone was, all my close friends were super supportive, and were like, whatever you need, like, do you need me to come and drop things off for you, and that sort of thing. And it was really a hassle to go to school in person too, because obviously I couldn't drive there, and it was just so annoying to have to like hobble to class.
Yeah.
And I was trying to stay off it as much as possible. So I stayed home quite a bit too and did school virtually, which is a fabulous thing to come out of the pandemic. Is everybody being more comfortable now with online Zoom school. And then 3 weeks later or so, I think, I got my dog.
Yeah.
So that was another good thing because I was feeling pretty down and really, really low. And she gave me something to focus on. And like pets and animals are so good
The best.
at being companions in those moments. So she was like a little teeny tiny baby and I could just kind of focus on her. And luckily she wasn't too terrified of the boot. At first she was kind of like, this is scary. And then by like, I don't know, the second week or whatever that I started wearing it, she was like, she would nap on it.
Oh,
it was so sweet. And then
so cute.
I came home one day and I went to go do something. I was also really bad with my boot. I didn't wear it all the time or as much, like, I didn't wear it nearly as much as I could have or maybe should have. But, so I would take it off. It's also just terribly uncomfortable and that sort of thing. So I think I left the apartment to go and check the mail or something and I didn't want to have it on because I was sitting and I had my foot elevated and that sort of thing. So I was already giving myself a break. I went to go and grab the mail from downstairs and came back up and I opened the door and my boot was like kind of just in the middle of the room and Luna like got all startled because she was right next to it or whatever.
Aww.
And I assumed that she was doing something she wasn't supposed to and she was like chewing it or something. And then it happened again. And then I realized, like, I think there was a moment where I opened the door and I was able to actually see what she had been doing. She was cuddling it.
Aww.
So I would like leave the house for a period of time and come back and scare her out of a nap. And she's like snuggled with this boot. So then I was worried, like, is this going to be like a big breakup for the two of them once I have it off?
That's so cute.
Yeah, it was really, I was convinced that she was doing something she shouldn't have been because she was just like, ah, every time I opened the door.
She's like, I'm in love with this boot.
Yeah, she got really into it. She would like lay on it and I don't know why. She just thought it was like my bionic leg, I guess. What kind of a weird situation.
She's so cute.
Yeah, she's sweet.
Well, I just want to say thank you for sharing your tips for running and also thank you for being so vulnerable with sharing your story too. Because I know that a lot of people, either they have been or they're going to be going through an injury or something that's going to set them back from their routine or whatever it is or go through a challenging time. And so I just want to say thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good place to end off the episode.
Yeah.
And with that, I'm going to end off this episode here. Thank you so much for listening or for watching, and I hope that you enjoyed this conversation. If you would like, I'm going to link Riley down below so you can check out her social medias and follow her journey there because you do post about your running and your travels and everything so much, and it's really fun to follow along. So thank you so much, Riley, for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
You did great.
Thanks.
And I hope to see you in the next episode.